poetry involves lines that come to an end and there's a blank space, and you see that. If it's a prose poem, you see the lack of that. So that poetry is visual too, in the negative sense. What's commonly called visual poetry, however, takes that blank space a step further and uses more blank space and other devices, typography, for example, different typefaces, arranging words like they did in, or letters like they did in concrete poetry, which is a type of visual poetry, or introducing other elements, visual elements, drawing, collaged elements, all kinds of other stuff into the text, or having text with these other materials. You can have visual poetry as three-dimensional. Kathy Ernst, for example, has done a bunch of three-dimensional sculptures using plaster letters of different sizes and shapes, and she arranges them into a three-dimensional form where there's a word or two or three or four running through the structure. There's some visual poetry of mine, two things on the next bookcase on the wall up there. Those are from...
Which ones is it? Oh, okay, those things.
Those are not too old.
What is that word?
Uvulent.
Whoa. Wow, that's beautiful.
And these involve using a mixture of calligraphy and special calligraphy that I've developed over the years, and old wood type and rubber stamps. Some of that is actually lead type with ink applied to it.
You do a lot of... How often do you make one of those?
Oh, I do it in phases. Lately I've been doing a lot, some every week or so. Other times I don't do any for several months, and then I'll do a whole bunch. It's not like my writing, which I pretty much work on all the time. I mean, my textual writing. And I've gone through different phases. There's one period where I did a bunch of large pieces using acrylic paints and pieces of found rubber that I applied the paint with and smeared it around, then wrote in it. And another series of things where there's a frame made with rubber stamped images or letters, and then a rather complex calligraphic text inside that has coloring and stuff going on in it. So I've just always felt that poetry was something you saw, and I like color and form and shape, and expanding language into that area of mental activity is just very stimulating. It means something to me. It helps me keep going.
So in your writing, your whole body of work, what do you think are some of your most significant contributions? Or are you able to assess your
Well,
own
no,
stuff?
of course I can't obsess what my contributions will be.
Yeah.
I think there are some, and there will be some. I'm fairly sure of that, but really I don't know, and
Yeah.
probably never will. But back when I was in college, somebody asked me what I wanted to do as a writer, and it just popped out. I said I want to change the language. And in a way, that's what I've been doing. The language I write in is not like anything else. And I don't say that, I mean, that's a pretty objective, I mean, if you read it, I think you would agree that it's not like anything else or anyone else's language. And most people who comment on it say the same thing. And that changing of the language is something that I wanted, because I felt I like to read poetry, but I've always felt there was something missing. There's something else I wanted to read there. And I discovered the only way to really find that was to write it. And so basically why I write is to have something to read that I really want to read. And so writing and reading occurs in a way simultaneously for me. And that's why I have to keep writing, because I need new stuff to read. It is a way, I mean, it's a necessity for me to understand the world, or to justify the fact that I exist. I mean, I feel lost without that experience. It makes me make sense, or makes the world make sense with me in it, whatever I am, which I don't understand that at all, but it makes sense, and a part of my being that works, even though I can't explain it.
So you're able to write every day? You don't have problems with writer's block?
Never did. No.
Really?
I write too much.
Really? So when's your favorite time to write? Or
I write. I have a regular schedule where I'm not at the library on one day a week, and I get up very early in the morning anyway, and so I get up and spend a good deal of time on that day writing. But I also write, get up in the night sometimes and write, or late in the evening. Sometimes when you're real tired, you sit down and write, and you come up with amazing things. Sometimes it's trash too, but you never know what's going to come out. So I'll do it. When I'm traveling, I'll be very involved with the traveling and seeing new things and whatnot. But I will force myself to write a little bit at the end of the day, and sometimes that produces really interesting stuff.
you write in a notebook, or do you type?
The first versions are in a notebook with a pen, and then I keyboard it into a computer and revise it a bit, or a lot. Lately I haven't been revising a whole lot, except between the handwritten part and the keyboarded part.
So you especially write poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Or have you written novels too? Or?
Never written a novel.
Oh, really?
Never felt the need to. I read more novels than I read poetry, actually, but I've never felt the urge to write a novel.
Wow. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I guess I'm satisfied with the novels that I read, so I don't have the need to write something that's lacking, as I was saying about the poetry.
Wow, that's interesting.
But I write essays, and I write introductions, and I write reviews and stuff like that as well. I've written scholarly books. So that's a different kind of activity.